All right, let's get right into it. Picture this. One night, one massive stage, one artist. Bad Bunny at the Super Bowl halftime show. You'd think millions of people are all watching the same thing, right? Well, what's so fascinating here is that they absolutely weren't. For a whole lot of people, it was this incredible moment of pride. But for others, it felt, well, confusing, maybe even a little alienating.
So that's the big question we're really going to dig into. How can one single performance create two totally different, totally opposite reactions? It's easy to just say, oh, it's just about musical taste, but it's not that simple, not even close. There is something much, much deeper going on.
And this really just lays it all out, doesn't it? On one side, you have this intense feeling of pride, of finally feeling seen. And on the other, discomfort, a sense of, hey, this isn't for me. And look, these aren't just casual opinions, like whether you liked a song or not. These are gut reactions, really deep and powerful. So let's figure out why.
Okay, so to really get the reactions, we have to first talk about what actually happened during the performance itself. See, Bad Bunny didn't just get up there and sing a few pop songs. No way. He put Spanish and his Caribbean culture front and center on what is, let's be real, maybe the most American stage on the planet. And just doing that alone was a huge deal. It was disruptive. So let's start with that feeling of discomfort. You know, it's kind of tempting to just brush it off, but if we really look at it, it's actually pretty complex. It's not just one simple thing. It's more like a cocktail of different feelings all mixed together that, for some people, created this genuine sense of being left out.
The analysis really boils it down to three main things driving that feeling. First, this idea of a loss of cultural centrality. We'll get into that. Second, the way language itself can be a powerful psychological trigger. And third, a classic case of expectation versus reality. So let's take them one by one.
All right, first up, this idea of losing cultural centrality. What does that even mean? Well, think about it. For forever, really, the halftime show has had this sort of unwritten rule about who it's for and what kind of culture it's supposed to represent.
In this quote right here, it perfectly captures that vibe, that subconscious feeling a lot of viewers have. It's this idea that this is America, this is our music, this is our moment. It's always been seen as a mirror for a very specific slice of mainstream American culture.
So then, all of a sudden, you get a performance that's mostly in Spanish, that comes from a totally different cultural background, and it doesn't try to translate itself or hold your hand through it. For an audience that has basically never had to be the one to adopt, that can be a real shock to the system. And that feeling of, I don't get this, can very easily feel like I'm being excluded.
Okay, let's get to the second point, and this one is huge. It's all about the power of language. Because here's the thing, language is never just words. It's packed with all sorts of psychological weight.
For a lot of people, English is just the default setting. It's normal. So when you hear another language, even one that millions of Americans have spoken for literally centuries, your brain can automatically file it away as foreign. And that's why the reaction wasn't always outright anger. For a lot of folks, it was more like confusion or just tuning out. That feeling of, well, this isn't for me, so I'm going to check out now.
And that leads us right into our third and final reason for the discomfort, which, honestly, it's pretty straightforward. It's that classic clash between what people expected to see and what they actually got.
Look, most people tune into the halftime show looking for some musical comfort food, right? They want something nostalgic, something that's easy to digest. They want to sing along to all the hits they already know and love. But Bad Bunny? He didn't show up to serve comfort. He showed up with confidence, basically saying, "This is my world. Come on in." And for some, that invitation felt more like a challenge they just weren't interested in.
Okay, so now let's flip the script entirely and look at the completely opposite reaction. Because for millions of Latinos watching, this performance wasn't just good or fun. No, it was deeply, deeply emotional. We're talking people moved to tears. So why? What was going on there?
Well, to get the joy, you first have to understand the pressure. For generations, so many Latinos in the U.S. have been surrounded by these messages. Some spoken, some not. You know the ones. Speak English, don't be too loud, don't stand out. Just try to fit in.
And then, bam. On the biggest stage in the entire country, you see an artist doing the exact opposite of all that. He's unapologetically centering his language, his music, his entire culture, and he's not explaining it or translating it for anyone. The message that sends? Wow. It's this incredible validation. It's like a voice saying, you didn't have to shrink, your culture was never wrong.
And this is the key takeaway here.
The feeling wasn't just pride, like, hey, our guy is up there. It was something deeper. It was release. It was like a giant collective exhale after a lifetime of feeling like you had to hide or shrink a part of who you are, just to be seen as American.
So, okay, we've got these two incredibly intense, totally opposite reactions. Deep discomfort on one side and this profound sense of release on the other. How on earth can they both be sparked by the very same event? Well, what the analysis suggests is that they actually do come from the same place. They're both just different reactions to the exact same massive shift happening in our society.
And that brings us right back to this core idea of cultural centrality. Basically, it's when one culture's way of doing things, its language, its norms, its music, is treated like the unspoken default setting for everybody. What this performance did was it just walked up and challenged who gets to control those default settings.
And you can see that shift laid out right here. You know, for so long, the then version of American culture was pretty much assumed to be white, English-speaking, and you're expected to assimilate. But the now, it's becoming multilingual, multi-ethnic, and way more unapologetic about it. All the halftime show did was take that shift, which has been happening for a while, and broadcast it in high definition to 100 million people all at the same time.
So where does that leave us? What's the big takeaway from these two powerful, polar opposite reactions? When you boil it all down, it's really just two sides of the very same coin.
For so many in the Latino community, that feeling of release was basically this powerful statement. We exist, and we don't need anyone's permission. It was a declaration that they belong on center stage. No apologies, no assimilation necessary.
And for some of the viewers who felt discomfort, that feeling really boils down to this sudden, kind of jarring realization, wait a minute, we're not the default anymore? It's that destabilizing moment when you realize the cultural stage is being shared, and your experience isn't the only one in the spotlight.
And all of this leaves us with one last, really big question. It's super clear the definition of American culture is changing. Look, Bad Bunny's performance didn't cause this shift. It just acted like a giant mirror, showing a transformation that was already happening. So the real question it puts to all of us is, what does American culture actually mean today?